Hello, 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 all of you beautiful people from around the world. I'm Josh. Welcome back to the Den of Nerds, and we are here to talk about The Mandalorian Season 1. Season 1 has came and went. I wanted to sit down with you guys and talk about this, man. Talk about what we liked about it, what we maybe didn't like about it. The show could always be improved, in my opinion. So yeah, that's what we're going to do with this live stream. If you're watching this on the replay, it's going to be sort of long form. We're going to go over a few things, and then we will get into Q&A towards the end of the stream. So as I see people coming into the chat, what's up, guys? Let me know. What did you think of The Mandalorian Season 1? What grade would you give it? You could do like a scale, 1 through 10, whatever you're thinking. Just let me know overall what were your thoughts about The Mandalorian Season 1. This is, of course, the first live-action foray into television for Star Wars. Even though it's technically streaming or whatever, it is, technically television. And so this was highly anticipated by a lot of people. We were all really curious as to how it would go. And then throughout the season, I think people had different kind of ideas about it. You know what I mean? There were a lot of people very high on it. There were some people very critical of certain things within the show. And then, of course, it wraps up with Chapter 8, with the final chapter, which I thought was a terrific ending, to the series. So there's a few things I want to go over. I actually left my notes beside me on the floor here. But there's a few things I wanted to go over, and we'll start with the positive. I'll go over the positives, and then we'll go over the negative, and then I want to talk about some things that I think the show sets up for Season 2. I think any show, particularly with a Season 1, is really predicated on what will happen at the end. How is the ending? Did they land it? Does it set up really interesting stuff for the future? Does it close up a bunch of arcs for the first season? And I personally believe that The Mandalorian Season 1 did a great job, an absolutely great job of wrapping up this first season, giving closure to a lot of arcs and a lot of characters, while, of course, setting some very interesting stuff up for Season 2. And if you look at the thumbnail that I did for this video, obviously, I think we're going to be getting some dark side Baby Yoda perhaps in the future, which would be really cool. So here we go. A lot of people saying they love it. 9 out of 10 overall for the season. I see hit me up. Let's have lunch in KOP. I'm actually not in Philadelphia anymore, man. I came back early to Pittsburgh. I see some people absolutely loving it. Absolutely loving it. Cool. So let me get into my thoughts. Let's start with the good, as I said, right? So the good, for me, the best thing about the show is actually the ending. The ending was so good for me that it elevates the show. Okay, now for me, and I've been pretty forward with you guys about my feelings about the pacing and my feelings about the episode lengths and different things like that. For me, it all was about how are they going to wrap it up. Because frankly, the show for me has been B plus, most of it, and I really was craving an A or an A plus, right? And I think with Star Wars specifically, but just with anybody that's a fan of anything, we can sometimes focus on the criticism and the things that we didn't like, and it might seem like, oh man, we don't even like this thing, and that's definitely not the case with me. I absolutely loved this show, but it wasn't mind-blowing the way maybe I had expected before I watched it, okay? And yes, of course, if you could drop a like on the stream, it would really help us out. I see people mentioning that in chat, so yeah, that would really help us out. So to me, the ending is amazing. It wraps up so many different things for the characters. I really felt for IG-11, and his relationship with the Mandalorian, I felt was handled perfectly. There's a ton of action in the ending, but it also it wraps up this arc. It wraps up this arc of what's happening on Navarro. It shows us some really negative things that happened after Episode 3 when the Mandalorian or Din Djarin decided to save the child. The ramifications of that, and it was not pleasant, right? A lot of Mandalorians died by the hands of the Empire, and so we get an ending that really does wrap up a lot of things and introduces some really interesting things moving forward. I talked about this a little bit in the video yesterday, but the idea of the Mandalorian high priestess or whatever she was, the lady that was, forging the armor. Her what she delivers, what she talks about with the Jedi and the Mandalorians, knowing of these sorcerers known as the Jedi and giving the mandate to the Mandalorian that Baby Yoda is now his foundling, it solidifies that arc. And it solidifies that now it's not just this selfish thing, perhaps, destructive thing that Din Djarin decided to do, but it is within their code, and it is now tied to the mandate of the Mandalorians and their clan in general, which I thought was really great, man. So to me, the ending elevates the show a lot. And I'll just say that for me, I was saying about 8 out of 10 for most of the show. To me, the ending bumps it to like a 9.1 out of 10. The way the show ends makes it one of those really special pieces of media that you can go back and rewatch with everybody, and going through all of it leading to that ending is a huge payoff. And so I just have to applaud Jon Favreau for that writing. Taika Waititi obviously crushed it directing the final episode, and Deborah Chow, of course, crushed it in the episode before. Really nice lead in to the finale. And so I would have to say that for me, the ending is one of the best things about the show. Another thing that I really liked about the show, as looking back at it, reviewing it as just a piece of Star Wars media, is the music. You guys know I've been super high on Ludwig Göransson and what he was doing with the score in this movie. I think it's frankly terrific. It's such a different flavor than what we're used to with the regular John Williams music. It sets a specific tone, a very Western tone, but ultimately it feels Star Wars. It really feels Star Wars, and there were only a few moments, actually in episode 6, I believe was the episode, that the music gets a little too crazy for me. It just teeters a little bit out of Star Wars land, but overall, I mean, think about this. Star Wars is one of those things that no matter who you are, no matter what part of it that you're coming in to work on, the people that came before you are not only legends, but they made it what it is. And so as someone coming in to do music for Star Wars, you are in the shadow of John Williams. Without John Williams, Star Wars wouldn't be what it is. It is so integral to what Star Wars is. And so anybody that comes in to score anything Star Wars is living in the shadow of John Williams. And for Ludwig to come in, put his own stamp on things, and really solidify that he can be a composer that can make music within the Star Wars universe that not only we believe, but that actually elevates the property, I thought was pretty incredible. So for me, the music, definitely something I take away as an amazing piece of this first season. And the next thing for me is the characters. The characters. To me, a show, and really this is just television, a show lives and dies by its characters. Of course, the main character, but all the characters that main character interacts with as well are incredibly important to the fabric of the show. And with Din Djarin, with The Mandalorian, and I said this in the very first episode, I said this is going to be weird because we're not going to see this guy's face. He's got a lot of acting to do without showing his face. And we now know, too, that one of the crazy things about this is that it wasn't even always the actor. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't even Homeboy in that suit for most of the time. And Pedro Pascal, I think, did a great job voice acting in this thing, and who knows exactly how many scenes he was actually in the suit for. You have to hand it to the production team for making this come together, and the directors and the vision of Favreau, of course, and the technology that they used. But like, whoever those body doubles are for Pedro Pascal, they deserve a lot of credit because the acting that is done with that helmet on is kind of out of control. Like, it's kind of out of control. Not to mention, I thought Carl Weathers killed it as Grief Karga. I don't really ever remember Carl Weathers being like a great actor. He's boisterous. He's that action star from back in the day. But I've never like seen moments of him that are like depth. You know what I mean? Maybe a little bit in the Rocky movies, a little bit. But by and large, I've never really seen him in stuff where I was like, yo, dude's got chops. I have to believe that Favreau wrote Grief Karga for him. Because it almost doesn't make sense how good he is in that role without it being sort of catered to him. And I loved it. I loved it. Also, Cara Dune. You know, Gina Carano is not an actress. I mean, she is an actress. I shouldn't say that. But she's not a classically trained actress. That her trajectory into acting was not a normal trajectory. She actually comes from the wrestling background, which I thought was really interesting because in that one episode where she's fighting the dude and she's sort of chained to him. What do they call that? Like a Russian chain match or something like that? Like that's kind of a wrestling thing, which I thought was kind of cool. But I'm going to go ahead and say it, man. I thought she killed it. And I think that she had some great directors that were pulling great performances out of her. And particularly in the last couple of episodes, she's really good. She's really great. And I mean, honestly, look, Giancarlo Esposito just chews up the scenes. Obviously, Werner Herzog chews up the scenes. I mean, honestly, this has some great characters. And the acting is crazy good. So the characters were memorable, and I can't wait to see where these characters go from here. Of course, Baby Yoda. Obviously, Baby Yoda. Whoever is the team that puppeteers that thing, I mean, again, they deserve a lot of credit. I don't think it has anything to do with Frank Oz. You know what I mean? I really don't. I don't think it has anything to do with Frank Oz. But it was incredible. Whoever's responsible for the acting of that little Baby Yoda, that was good stuff, man. That was good stuff. I got to tell you, really good stuff. I will say that another thing that I really liked about it, and I see people coming in here. What's up, Angus? How you doing, man? To me, one of the things the show absolutely nails is what you would call like the mise en scène if you were like in film school or whatever. But basically what it means is the feeling that you get from all of the visual and audio elements that are being presented to you. It has a vibe, right? And it just sets you into that world. And I buy it 100% the whole way through. And so, again, an incredible job, just cast and crew, directors, writers, everybody, to convey that theme and that feeling throughout the show. I mean, it's as Western as it can get. There's some, like, samurai vibes in there, some kung fu vibes. Overall, just incredible what they were able to do with the mise en scène of the show. I really have to applaud it. I thought it was great. And then finally, the final thing that I want to talk about positively is the lore. When it comes to Star Wars, the lore is really important. You know what I mean? Like this is essentially, it's like Lord of the Rings in space, and the Jedi and the space wizardry that goes on with that is really the core of the Star Wars universe. It is this incredibly important thing. And there's also like this kind of built-in element with Star Wars where you know there's a backstory. I mean, we almost always come in a Star Wars movie with a scene happening that has implications and ramifications that go way back. I mean, think about the first film. We come in on Leia, and we come in with Vader capturing her, looking for the Death Star plans. You know what I mean? We're like, we don't know what the Death Star is, really. We don't know what the Senate is, really. We don't know what the state of the galaxy is, really. It's all contextual, and yet Star Wars has this amazing ability to give you a small piece of the tapestry, and then your investigation into it becomes a part of the journey by which you enjoy the medium. And this has been that way for a long, long time. And the little tidbits of lore, and as we went on with Star Wars, the little things that give you a little bit more lore, or tease you with a little bit more lore, or help you out understanding the lore. These things are amazing and really, really important. And so what happened with the lore in the show, I didn't know how much they were going to touch it. I didn't know how much they were going to mention with it. Geekdom 101 in the chat, everybody. If you guys don't know who Geekdom is, you're doing it wrong. Thanks for coming in here, Geekdom. How you doing, brother? Oh, and I just broke the allure. Now you guys can see that I have pajamas on. I just broke it. I apologize. But when it comes to the lore of The Mandalorian, man, there's a lot of cool things that they did. Number one, they touched on this idea of the Imperial Remnant. And the Imperial Remnant, particularly when I was reading the Aftermath novels, and even I believe it's even mentioned a little bit in Bloodlines. No. It was Lost Stars. Lost Stars, Claudia Gray's book, which I have to highly recommend Claudia Gray. If you're a big fan of ancillary material, I highly recommend Claudia Gray's books. I think they're really great. But this idea of the Imperial Remnant was really interesting to me when I first heard about it, because essentially you got to think, the Empire didn't just disappear all at once, right? I mean, it was massive. It was such a massive, crazy, big thing that it's so oppressive that that is the shadow by which all of the heroes in the first trilogy kind of earn their medal, so to speak. Some literally in the first movie, right? But like what I'm saying is, the Empire was this massive thing, right? And when the Emperor died, I think many of us were interested in exactly what happened after that. Do you know what I mean? And we get a little bit of it in Battlefront. You know, we get a little taste of that. We start to hear this thing of the contingency in the Aftermath novels, the remnant. And I remember one of the coolest things in one of these books, and I'm kind of blending them a little bit, so I don't remember exactly which novel it was, but there was this idea that there were self-appointed emperors out there, that there were different Moffs, different governors, different imperial leaders in the Navy that self-appointed as emperor. And they consolidated their personal power, and there was sort of infighting among the Imperials. And to see a little bit of that flavor with Moff Gideon, which particularly I believe gets teased at the very end of it, is fantastic. Fantastic. It really is. It's fantastic. And I appreciate all the love coming in the chat. I do. I appreciate all the love, guys. So let me just get through a couple more things. We'll get into Q&A, okay? The other really interesting thing about the lore that this show does is all about the Force, okay? So you have a little baby Yoda at the core of your show. And as always, you know, when it comes to the Force, you know, everybody loves it, but everybody's really quick to sort of criticize, to sort of say, well, that's not how the Force works, you know what I mean? Like Han Solo and stuff, right? When you're dealing with the Force, it's a delicate thing, especially when it comes to the lore and when it comes to Star Wars fans. And I felt like not just the contents of what is written down in the script, but the way it's shot and delivered was amazing. When Baby Yoda holds up that mud horn, I thought that scene was terrific. And I can juxtapose it against a scene that I thought was really like not that terrific. And that would be the Leia Mary Poppins scene from The Last Jedi. I know there's people that like the scene, but to me, what's going on in that scene is actually really cool. Everybody wants to see Leia use the Force. Of course. We've been waiting for that for so long. Everybody liked that. That was in the expanded universe. It was awesome. So to see Leia use the Force is something fans wanted. However, the execution of that scene is like puzzling. It's like a freaking head scratcher to me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get it. You know, it wasn't executed in a way that lines up with what they're trying to do with the lore. However, the way the Mudhorn scene is directed is brilliant and beautiful. It's brilliant and beautiful. And there are many instances like this in the show. And what's going on with little baby Yoda, including his little dark side moment, and I got the red lightsaber. On the Baby Yoda in the thumbnail, and that's because we're getting a little dark side Baby Yoda, right? We got it teased in this show, and for me, all great Star Wars stories and all the great Star Wars characters really have to deal with the light side versus the dark side. George Lucas said, it is as simple as, are you on the path of being righteous and benevolent, or are you on the path of being selfish, heading towards oblivion? It's one of those two things. And by the way, people have been hitting me up a lot lately, and I'm working on a lot of Star Wars videos. I'm working on a lot of Star Wars videos, trying to break stuff down with Rise of Skywalker, because I've had a lot of people, a lot of Raylos hit me up and be like, can you explain the Star Wars rules? Why did Ben Solo have to die? Because he chose the path to oblivion. It's very simple. He chose the path to oblivion. That's what it is. But when it comes to little Baby Yoda, the introduction of the Force, teasing us a little bit with the potential dark side thing that happens. And to me, it all comes to a head in the final episode, where you not only get an explanation of the Mandalorian Jedi Wars, of Mandalore the Great, and sort of, I guess, Old Republic Jedi, you know what I mean, technically, which is, again, from Legends, but was canonized in Star Wars Rebels with, Kanan Jarrus, the Darksaber trials, all of that really interesting stuff. But then on top of that, we see that Gideon has the Darksaber, and the Empire obviously wants Baby Yoda. Why do you think they want Baby Yoda? They want his power, right? And so, to me, the lore that they're building here and the potential lore that moves forward from this point is very interesting. And I also wanted to say, too, this doesn't necessarily have a lot to do with the show, but a lot of people are questioning, like, where's Baby Yoda in Episode 9? I got to tell you, my gut is telling me that he's around, but he's still like an infant. He's not an adult. So even though he's really strong with the Force, I think he's still adolescent at the time of Episode 9. Because if he's 50 years old, and like, what would you say he's the equivalent of? Like around 2? Around 2? So another 50 years, if this is 5 to 7 years after Endor, then it's 23 years away from TFA, meaning it's really only 24, 25 years from the end of Episode 9. He's likely 75 to 80 years old. I don't think he's an adult. I don't think he's doing anything, which is the way they can kind of, get around that and potentially set him up for the future, which would be really cool. But those are all the things that I absolutely love about the show. Now, quickly, I want to talk about some things I wasn't crazy about the show, things I didn't like with the show. And then we'll get into Q&A. I would love to talk with you guys, just geek out with you guys about Mandalorian. I think it would be really cool. But here's the thing. I've been open about this, but to me, the length of the episodes doesn't make any sense. And I know there are people out there that think the length of the episodes are fine. It's serialized. It's Saturday morning cartoon. You can do it all in a very crunch time. Guys, think about the best episodes of this season. All of the best episodes of this season teeter on a 40-minute length. And the difference between a 24-minute first episode and a 40-minute finale is huge. It's not 16 minutes. It's way more than 16 minutes. It's pacing. It's quiet moments that you get to spend. Do you know what I mean? Like, a lot of people's complaints about The Rise of Skywalker is that should be like a 3-hour movie. And it really should be. You don't really get a lot of time to breathe in that film. You know what I mean? Like, that's one of its big flaws. I've talked to people about this. I'm like, yeah, no, it's definitely jam-packed. It's crunched together. It could have used more time to breathe. It's the same thing with the show to me. Like, although I understand that there's really tight packages, especially in the first 2 to 3 episodes, for me personally, that's like Star Wars, and I'll get into this in a minute here, but it's kind of like Star Wars is just proving that it can do television. It's not proving that it can change the game. It's basically just saying, like, Star Wars can work in television. And we're all like, cool. But we kind of already knew that. I mean, to me, Star Wars Rebels is an incredible show. Incredible show. But animated, I know it's a hang-up for some people. They can't get it. Star Wars Rebels is a tight package, guys. It's a very, very tight package. To me, the first season of Mandalorian is really I don't want to say saved, but it's highly helped by some of the larger episodes and by the ending itself. Mainly for me, what I was looking for going into the show was something like what happened in Daredevil Season 1. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want mind-blowing, game-changing entertainment. And the reason I crave it so much is because I got to tell so many people when Daredevil Season 1 first came out, I would get people that were, maybe they were into stuff, they were nerdy or whatever, but they weren't like super into Daredevil. They didn't know who Daredevil was. I was like, no. This show is amazing. You must watch this show. And I felt confident in being like, we can get people that aren't even hardcore to buy into the show. Now, Baby Yoda did that anyways, But to me, that's what I was looking for, is like game changing. Like I look at some of like my favorite shows, like Fringe from back in the day, J.J. Abrams, John, that was incredible. I even think that David Lindelof's Watchmen, which started off so freaking shaky for me, actually turned the corner and became incredible television that you can't stop watching. The Boys season 1, incredible television that you can't stop watching. Even Jessica Jones season 1, incredible television that gets you captivated and you can't stop watching it. I felt like Mandalorian is just not quite there. Do you know what I mean? As far as from what a show could be. And again, obviously I love the show. I love it. But I can acknowledge that it didn't hit that like epic, insane level that I wanted it to. And I hope that it does in season 2. There are plenty of shows that have like a decent season 1 and then season 2 just blows the whole thing up, right? And maybe that's what we'll get. But the other thing that I thought was a negative with the show was the pacing, okay? And to me, it's not even really debatable, because when you look at the episodes that Jon Favreau wrote, I have zero problem with any of those episodes. It's really episode 5 or 4 and 5 and 6, even though I love episode 6. It's freaking brilliant. But episodes 4, 5, and 6, which I believe were not written by Jon Favreau, they feel like they're not written by Jon Favreau. You know what I'm saying? Like, they feel very filler, very B-plot. Do you know what I mean? And again, even in Rebels, there are episodes like that. But the difference is you have a 24-episode season in Star Wars Rebels. We had 8. We had 8 episodes. And so I really, really don't think that some of these episodes needed to be the way that they are. And it's like, what happened? Like, John turned in, what did he do? 1, 2, 3. And then, so John turns in 5 episodes. And then, look, we don't know if this is happening, but John turns in 5 episodes and Disney's like, how about 3 more? You know what I mean? Like, how about we wedge 3 more in the middle of this story you wrote? Because we really need to spread this thing out. That's kind of what it feels like to me. And I really hope that does not happen in the next season. Also, what the heck was up with the ending of episode 5? With the random person and that assassin is alive? That doesn't get paid off at all. What was up with that? You know what I mean? Like, I really thought that was going to come back in the final episode. But it does not. So to me, I'm watching the show and like, really, those middle episodes are a big dip for me. Even though episode 6 is incredible, it doesn't really do much to push the A plot forward. And then once we get back to the A plot, it's super tight. It's super tight. So to me, the show's like a 8 out of 10, a B, and then the ending elevates it. The ending's like A. Maybe A minus, depending on how I'm feeling, but A to A minus. Terrific show. So that's pretty much where my thoughts are at. But guys, I want to shift into Q&A. So please feel free to drop some questions into the chat. Of course, if you've got a super chat, it helps the channel out. I will answer every single super chat that comes in. But if you don't have any loot, don't worry about it. Just drop a question in. We'll get to as many questions as we possibly can. And now we shall nerd out. We shall just nerd out about this show, because I know we all are pretty fond of it. Let's see here. Maybe I'll scroll up a bit. This is interesting. Lance Corporal Kitty says, New Rockstars did some maths on this, and they said Baby Yoda being 50 works out to him being 5 human years. Interesting. So, okay, I like that, because it's very simple to do that conversion. And so by that, he would be like 7 to 8 years old at the time of Rise of Skywalker. So, makes sense to me. Sounds pretty chill. Yeah, let's see here. I think it was Gideon's boots, but I'm not 100% sure. So that's kind of where I was at, Geekdom. I also thought it was his boots. I was like, that's probably Grief. Or you think it's, so you think it's Gideon's. I actually thought it was Grief Karga. I was like, that's Grief Karga. But maybe it is Gideon, and we'll see it play out later. But that really brings up a lot of weird questions. Like, what was he doing on Tatooine? How was he able to even find them? If he was able to find them, why didn't he just come and take Baby Yoda then? You know what I mean? Like, it just, there's some questions there. If Yoda's species are asexual, why have Yaddle? I don't know if they were asexual. If that's a thing, I've missed it in the book or whatever. Let's see here. Geekdom 101 with the super chat. Thank you very much, brother. Says, sup, brother. So you weren't the only one who thought of the pregnancy angle for Rey and Kylo. I did too. Episode 10 could be pregnant Rey having twins, and one could be inherently evil, and here we go again. Yeah, 100%, dude. 100%. And actually, I'm working on a video. I was literally writing the script earlier this morning because I'm going to probably release that video tomorrow that really breaks down my thoughts about Rey being pregnant with new Skywalker twins at the end of episode 9. But you know what's really interesting? I don't know if you guys know this, but there were people on Reddit that were bringing up this theory, and they were literally being chastised so much that the threads are deleted. People can't even bring up the Rey is pregnant theory without getting lambasted by people that find that offensive. And there are two groups of people, like on the extremes, that find that offensive. Some people think that you're treating Rey like a walking womb, and this would be sort of like the progressive SJW crowd. And then there's just a bunch of kind of haters, borderline trolls that are like, yeah, that's whack as hell. Do you know what I mean? And literally, so it just shows how awesome Star Wars fans. This is what we got going on. That people on Reddit literally deleted their posts. And obviously, I'm not going to delete my video or whatever. But I was crafting it in a way because I really want to explain to people. You know, I have this issue with people that want to look at Star Wars stories from the angle of optics. You know, postmodern optics. These are mythological tales. Do you know what I mean? Like, these are mythological tales. They're really not supposed to be taken at face value. There's a deeper meaning to them. It's just like in Greek mythology. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a deeper meaning going on than who Rey is as like a person, as a character, as a woman, right? She's not just that. She's a representative of so much more than that, you know, in my opinion. But yeah, Danny, I highly believe that Rey is pregnant. I mean, it just makes the whole ending make so much more sense. So much more sense. The ending just makes so much more sense if she's pregnant. I mean, why else take the Skywalker name? Why else bury Leia's saber there? There's a lot that doesn't make sense about that ending. Yeah, Irene, that's exactly it. I see you saying people are trying to put human paradigm on how conception can occur in mythology. Yeah, totally. It's mythological. He put his hand on the womb, 100%. 100%. Now, what I can't decide is actually if that was the moment. My gut tells me that she was already pregnant at that moment, but he feels the children. Like, so he feels that she's pregnant or whatever, and then heals her because of that. Yep. Yeah, I don't post on the Star Wars Reddit pages anymore. People are just dicks. That's forced sex for you, clearly. Yep, I'm with you there. PPPs with the $5 super chat with the adorable Baby Yoda icon. Thank you for the chat. And also, if you had a question, just drop it into the chat because I see no question on that super chat, but I do appreciate it. I don't think they actually had sex. I think that, to me, and again, I'll get into more of this specifically in tomorrow's video, but to me, it really has to do with the dyad and something that Palpatine says. He essentially says that the dyad is like the power of life itself. Really interesting line. You know what I mean? So I think the dyad is the answer. Okay, I see your question. Do you think Baby Yoda makes it into Star Wars 10 with Rey's twins? I don't know what the future holds for Baby Yoda. And I got to be honest, I don't know what the future holds for Star Wars in general. I think that, I was talking to some other Star Wars fans about this, and they can go one of two ways. Well, they can go three different ways, in my opinion. They can go way back which was what Dan and Dave were going to do. That's what the Game of Thrones people were going to do. They were going to go back and talk about the origin of the Jedi and some of that stuff, like Dawn of the Jedi with the Jedi and, the Ashla and the Bogan. Some of that stuff is like my favorite legend stuff. So I would like it. But I think it also might behoove them to go way into the future. Past this, 1,000 years past episode 9. Because I think one of the things that Disney is not understanding is that there are sort of expectations. I mean, think about this. Heir to the Empire, that trilogy by Timothy Zahn, is so damn good that people just considered it canon. They were like, no, that's the story. That's what happened. And so you were automatically going to bring comparisons with the new saga stuff to that story. That was going to happen. And if you go back to Old Republic, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to get compared to some of the best stories that were in Legends. Maybe that's not what you need right now. Maybe you need to go way into the future, do something new, reestablish Sith and Jedi. You can do slight callbacks to the old Empire, but maybe new is the way to go. And as far as how Baby Yoda ties into all of that, I really couldn't tell you, man. I think Baby Yoda is definitely going to, like, this show will probably go, like, what do you guys think? 4 or 5 seasons at least? 4 or 5 seasons? And what I really hope for the show, and I do see the super chats, I'll get to them in just a minute here, guys. What I really hope for the show is something like what they did with Ahsoka and Ezra. Ahsoka and Ezra are incredibly important characters to the 2 prior animated shows because Ezra's flirting with the dark side, his power and gifts within the Force, and how the crew deals with that, particularly Kanan, is the heart of the show. It's the heart of the show. And now, like Mandalorian and Din Djarin having to deal and having to basically raise an incredibly powerful Force user, knowing and holding onto the responsibility that he could possibly leave him to the dark side. And oh, baby, do I hope we get some Sith stuff, some really dark stuff moving forward. I think that could be the crux of the show. But I think you kind of need to age Baby Yoda up for that too. So I'm kind of confused on if they'll do that or not. But thank you very much for the question. I do appreciate it. Let's see here. Let's go to this super chat here by Kavid Abdul. Do you think since Mando will run into Luke or Ben? Do I think that Mandalorian will run into Luke or Ben? It's certainly possible. I know a lot of people have that question because essentially if he's trying to get Baby Yoda back to Jedi, Luke is the obvious choice. But check this out. Mando didn't know about Luke Skywalker. So even though Luke Skywalker is a legend within the core, right? Legend. And of course, people in the Outer Rim have heard of him, but apparently Mando has not, right? Because he doesn't know about the Jedi. He doesn't know about the Force. We're led to believe that the first time he's heard of the Force is when the female clan leader tells him about the ancient sorcerers known as Jedi. So he probably doesn't know about that. Maybe he finds out, though. Maybe as he's going around the Outer Rim towards the core next season, he runs into some people that know of Luke Skywalker. I would love it. I'd love it, man. Get Sebastian Stan to play a young Luke Skywalker. Bada boom, bada bing. We're all gravy. Let's see here. Maverick Pilgrim coming in hot with the super chat. Thanks, brother. Chances of a Jedi temple on Tatooine. I believe you're referring to after Rise, right? After Rise of Skywalker. Totally possible. So I've been rereading the Plagueis novel. Brilliant book. James Luceno, dude. James Luceno is so good that one of the best new canon books is actually Catalyst, which was a book that came out before Rogue One. It painfully also shows one of the big problems that me and Geekdom both have with the new canon, and that's a disconnect between the beautiful stuff that's established in the ancillary materials and then how the films treat it. There's huge disconnects with some of those characters, but still, James Luceno is so damn good that, like, that Catalyst novel before Rogue One is amazing. But I digress. His work on the Plagueis book is so interesting. It talks about so many different things, how Tatooine had a Jedi temple on it. There was Sith stuff there. There was an ancient Sith temple on Naboo. All these really interesting. By the way, really weird part of the Plagueis novel where there's this secret apprentice, this secret Sith that attacks Plagueis, who is a Mun or a Moon, depending on how you pronounce it, on his planet. And the guy goes to Force Lightning, and Plagueis takes both his sabers and puts them in a crossguard, and that's enough of a threat to make the lightning dude not blast the lightning. I don't know what the deal is with cross-guarding sabers and what that does to Force Lightning, but I swear to you, it's in the Plagueis novel. And I was like, what? Like, is that literally just like freaking rock, paper, scissors? You know what I mean? Like, it is the paper. The crossguard saber is the paper to the rock that is Force Lightning. Seems a little weird. But, and there's also like Force Essence transfer, a lot of cool Sith stuff. And that's why I wanted to reread it. I was like, how the hell is Palpatine alive, basically, is where that. Anyways, I digress. Let's get back to these questions. But yeah, just to answer you, man, yeah, I do think that we could get some Jedi Temple stuff on Tatooine. That's really interesting. So let's go to Keaton Neighbors. I would prefer the future, honestly. We all know where the past leads. Love the show, man. Been following you for a long time. Hey, man, thank you, Keaton. I appreciate it, man. I've been reflecting a lot about just how grateful I am to be able to do this and at what I want to do in 2020 and really growing and, being grounded in positivity and being careful with the platform and what we do with it. And, so I appreciate you for being on this journey with me, man. And whew, we're going to look back, I tell you, because we ain't stopping. You know what I mean? We ain't stopping. And I really want to crush 2020 and beyond that and establish this as a very big brand. And we'll look back to these times and be like, man, those were cool times where we're sort of finding our footing, learning together and deciding how we want to move forward. But as far as your opinion about the future, I really think that's probably how they should go. Although I'm not going to be mad if we get Old Republic. I'm not going to get mad if we get Old Republic, but I know that certain fans will if it's not as good as the EU stuff, right? So let's see here. Matt Bailey coming in with a super chat. Do you think Baby Yoda could be at Luke's academy when it was destroyed? I really don't. Because I think he is too young. He's too young. Also, I believe we're going to meet more of Yoda's species. I really do believe that Baby Yoda will eventually just land back with his species. And we'll probably get some mythological reason as to why they normally don't become Jedi or even leave their planet. And it could be very similar to what's happening with Luke on Ahch-To, where essentially like he kind of feels like he's so powerful that he should just be taken off the board. That if he's on the board, it causes that ebb and flow, that rising of the dark side in the Force. There could be something like that going on. So no, I actually don't. I appreciate the question, but no, I do not think that Baby Yoda was on in the academy with Luke. Oh my God, guys, this is an amazing moment. This is an incredible moment. Everyone, please lean in. Babu Frick is in the chat. And not only is he in the chat, he seems to have found some credits because he did drop a super chat. Babu Frick stole the show in The Rise of Skywalker. That dude is amazing. That dude is hilarious. I love the part where C-3PO gets rebooted and he's like, I am C-3PO. Nice to meet you. And Babu Frick is like, hello, I am Babu Frick. It's good stuff. Anyways, Babu Frick says, hey, what do you think of the chances of Disney resuming Skywalker Saga with episodes 13 to 15 and doing episodes 10 to 12 later on? I tried a Babu Frick accent there. I don't know how that did. What do I think about them doing the episodes for? Here's my thing, man. I think Lucasfilm is waiting to see what this film does in the box office. And thank God for them, it had a heck of a week. Now, it did have a pretty dramatic drop on Friday. And we'll see what it does today. We'll see what it does tomorrow. By tomorrow afternoon, we'll have the full picture of what the second weekend looks like. I think Disney is holding its breath and waiting to see what the box office is going to look like for this film before they make any major decisions. And we kind of know this because Kathy said that they know the director of the next film, even though they have no idea what the next film is going to be. Now, again, I've been very critical of Lucasfilm's PR, and almost every single time Kathy Kennedy opens her mouth, I end up wishing that she didn't. Not trying to be a dick, but like she has foot in mouth syndrome, and she's already kind of a heel to a lot of the fans, right? So she comes in and everybody's ready. Everybody's like, what's she going to say this time? And she kind of says a lot of stupid stuff. But regardless, I don't know if they're going to continue to do episodes, if they're going to continue to do trilogies, what they're going to do. My personal opinion is, and this is what I think they should do, get George Lucas back on board. I think you need George to help. George needs to give his stamp of approval on whatever they do next. And I think you get Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, and George Lucas in a room, and they don't come out of that room until they have figured out the blueprint of what Star Wars is going to look like from here on out. Maybe it's an outline of a story. Maybe it's just, here's the type of characters we want to do. Here's the stories we think that we should be telling, whatever. I think they need to do something like that, and whatever they do next needs to be thoroughly planned out. Like when Kathy said that she didn't know about trilogies and that trilogies are too restricting, man, did that get me hot. Man, did that get me hot. And I'm just like, well, that's because you screwed up a trilogy. Like, you screwed up a trilogy. And as much as I love Rise, this trilogy is a C+ at best. It doesn't function as a trilogy, really. It's like watching Disney try to make Star Wars rather than watching Star Wars. Now, I'm just one of those guys that just gives them the benefit of the doubt. I'm happy that we even have Star Wars. I'm here for the ride, baby. I'm here. But, I mean, let's call it a spade. Like, they done goofed with this trilogy. And so do I think they could do episodes 13 to 15 and then come back to do 10 to 12 later? 100%. Whatever they do, though, they need a plan. They need a singular creative vision. Not necessarily a vision created by one person, but a singular creative vision. Feige is not just the guy that knows and keeps everything, all the plates spinning and everything like that. He has a team of people that help him establish the story moving forward. And he works with writers and directors to fit those stories into that singular creative vision. It doesn't all just come from the brain of Kevin Feige, but it is a singular creative vision. And so as long as they do that, Babu Freak, I do think that they could do episodes. And I kind of hope they do. I want to see the twins, man. I want to see a young boy that looks just like Ben Solo. And then I want to see a young girl that looks just like Rey. And I want Rey to go to the dark side, little baby Rey. And I want Ben Solo to be the good boy this time, to be a mama's boy. I want to see how all that plays out. But thank you very much for the question, Babu Freak. I do appreciate that. And then I do want to get to this $20 super chat here. Nate Elston, the future isn't safe either, as the legacy of the Force materials could be the expectation. Like the thought and theory, though, Knights of the Old Republic / Old Republic would be killer. Massive action and lore. Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. The legacy of Force materials could be the expectation. Look, I think when it comes to Star Wars, there's going to be expectation no matter what. I guess what I mean is, if you get away from actually incredible properties that already existed, because really Disney sort of shot themselves in the foot when they devalued the expanded universe. I don't think they killed the expanded universe because it still exists. In fact, most of it's now published by Disney subsidiaries. But I think they devalued it. But the promise was the new canon is going to be completely fit together, and everything you spend on this stuff, your investment is going to be knowing the actual canon story. The problem is it only goes so far. It comes right up to the films, and then I guess the excuse is just that movies are really hard to make. You know what I'm saying? So there were things they did wrong, and I think that sort of caused a rift within fans. And because there are these properties, like the Heir to the Empire stuff, and even back in Dawn of the Jedi and a lot of the John Jackson Miller comic books and stuff from back in the day, because you have those, it just automatically comes with comparisons. There will always be expectations. And even Bob Iger said at the premiere for The Rise of Skywalker that they know the next one's very important. Like, Disney's not dumb. If you think they didn't make certain changes in Rise of Skywalker specifically because they saw in the data that The Last Jedi had turned off a large majority of reasonable Star Wars fans that weren't making YouTube videos screaming about SJWs, but just reasonable Star Wars fans that just felt like this isn't not quite my Star Wars, you're crazy. They saw that in the data and they made adjustments. And so they're not stupid, but they definitely have a lot of work to do. And whatever they do next, man, if you guys think, it's so crazy to me. You know, I was just talking to a buddy about this. I said, it's fascinating to me because after Force Awakens, what all of us said was, holy crap, there's so much pressure on Last Jedi. There's so much pressure on Last Jedi. Then Last Jedi came out, and we were like, woo, baby. The pressure on Episode 9 is out of control. And now that Episode 9 has come out, we're all like, damn. Whatever that 2022 movie is, it's going to have an incredible amount to accomplish. There is so much pressure on it. How did they do this? Like, how did they do this in a way where they're setting up the next project kind of for failure in a sense because there's so much riding on it? It's like almost like that was their plan. Let's keep having an incredible amount ride on each of these movies moving forward. You know what I mean? So I don't think that moving or going into the future just alleviates all of that, but it perhaps could alleviate the comparisons to other great pieces of work. That's what I'm saying. But now I'm going to kind of scroll up, guys. I want to go over just some of the questions that maybe weren't super chats or whatever, because I want to just, talk about this with you guys. Let's see here. 7 and 8 seem like part 1 and 2 of an episode, says Megan Pariah, Heaven Library. Megan, that's actually something that Al Schuler and I talk about a lot. We've had this conversation many times where we're like, dude, if TFA and TLJ were one movie, scrunch that stuff together and it's one movie, that's a pretty freaking solid first episode. Like, really, it would have been. Because it would have come in the way TFA does. It tickles the nostalgia berries. We're feeling it. It's Star Wars. It's familiar. And then it starts really taking some turns. You know what I mean? And honestly, the way I would have done it is crunch those two together. They're the first episode. But then you don't kill Luke. And in episode 2, you basically have Rise of Skywalker all the way up to the part where it is revealed that Rey is a Palpatine. But you put Luke into that story. So you have Luke with the green saber actually feeling the call. And he has an Obi-Wan moment, sacrifices himself, do all that, but do it in the second episode and end it with Rey finding out she's a Palpatine. Crazy. Then boom, we come in for the third episode of the trilogy. That's the way I would have done it. And I think in hindsight, I think they kind of understand that would have been good. Let's see here. Nicholas says we need Sabine Wren, Ahsoka Tano, and Bo-Katan. Yeah, that would be really cool. I think that the likelihood of seeing her, Sabine and Ahsoka by the end of the show is pretty high, particularly when you realize that the last time we see the Darksaber, it is handed to Bo-Katan from Sabine, and Bo-Katan is supposed to be the ruler of Mandalore, and she's supposed to help liberate them from the Empire. Apparently it didn't go so well, right? But this probably happens after the epilogue where Sabine leaves with Ahsoka to go find Ezra Bridger. And so if they find him or whatever, which I do actually think might be handled in a Timothy Zahn novel, which I wouldn't mind at all because Zahn is incredible. And then maybe when they come back, later seasons, maybe when we're on Mandalore again, then we could probably see Din Djarin, Ezra Bridger, Ahsoka, and Sabine kind of merge. That would be really cool. Filoni loves to do that kind of stuff too, so that would be cool. Let's see here. Keith Davidson says, how long do you think before there's a comic book tie-ins to The Mandalorian? Sooner rather than later. But, Mandalorian also had this beautiful ability to sort of fly under the radar where the leaks weren't super accurate. There's a lot of misdirection. We didn't even have Baby Yoda stuff for Christmas, and that was because they wanted to keep the integrity of that spoiler. And so, Lucasfilm has this weird thing where they've been so hands-off with the time period around past Endor going towards TFA and even past TFA. They've been so hands off, and it's clear that the reason they were hands off is because they didn't really have it figured out, right? And so I would hate for them to, just because it's popular, try to figure out a way to make comic book stories around that time. But if we get a comic book or something that is explaining a little bit more of Moff Gideon, maybe even a little bit more of Din Djarin, he is saved by Death Watch. That could be really cool. See how that all plays together. So, yeah, I'd be into that. I would be into that. Let's see here. Maverick Pilgrim says, I wish we had no Ryan for 8 and give him a trilogy. Star Wars needs something fresh, but didn't screw with the story we already have. Yeah. So this is actually a really good point, because I also believe that Ryan would have been... Like, here's the thing. When I was just talking to somebody. We were talking about Rose Tico. I think she's a terrible character. You know what I mean? No disrespect to Kelly Marie Tran. When I was at Celebration, Kelly Marie Tran came out on stage and everybody cheered for Kelly. And I was one of those people. I cheered for Kelly because I thought it was awesome, because there'd been a lot of pressure, a lot of mental health problems, some harassment, and she leaves social media. Now, I don't even think she necessarily left social media just because of harassment. I think that's a narrative. I think she left because she's in Star Wars, and the volume that she was getting on social media was ridiculous. Sometimes I check out. You know what I mean? I have a little baby YouTube channel. Sometimes I check out. It's crazy. You know, the mental health aspect of it. I cheered for Kelly Marie Tran. I still think that character is pointless. And when I was watching TLJ again recently with my sister after we saw Rise, the beginning scene with Rose's sister, Paige, is such a great scene. But I left that scene being like, who is that person and why should I give a crap? Who is that person and why should I give a crap? If that's the first episode of a new trilogy, I'm all in. But it's the second episode of pre-established characters that I liked. And now we're sidetracked with this new character that just feels so forced into the movie. Like, that scene is only in there so you give a crap about Rose later in the film. Like, I'm sorry. Ryan could have done great with his own thing. Unfortunately, he'll never get another Star Wars thing ever. And I know some people might not understand that, but I'm more confident than ever that he'll never do anything in Star Wars ever again. At least not for like 10 years. Maybe after 10 years, the Hayden Christensen thing will happen where we're all like, no, we were a little hard on you, buddy. Come on back. We love you. But for now, no way. There's no way we would have got Rise the way that we got Rise if Disney was like, yeah, I definitely think Rian Johnson helped us out a lot. No way. No way. So, yeah, I agree with you, Mav. I would have loved to see him just do his own thing. But unfortunately, that is not the way the cookie crumbled. Give us a Star Killer Disney Plus show. Dude, that would be hype, yo. Yo, that would be hype. Oh, my gosh, how did I miss this? Christian Longo is still in here absolutely hating the Rey with the twins theory. Christian, welcome back. It's good to have you hating on the theory. It almost doesn't feel... It almost doesn't feel right without you in here being very upset about that theory. Let's see here. Just want to get into some of these interesting thoughts that people have been having. Could there be an IG-12 that activates after 11 blew up, kind of like a collective? I mean, there's definitely other IG units, but I don't think we're getting like a like that character's gone. You know what I mean? Great character too, right? Great character. And I loved how, like, Queel sort of imprints himself on IG-11, and there's, like, a through line there where, Queel literally kind of says as much with that little montage in the prior episode where he's like, droids are not good or bad. They're simply mirrors of those that imprint upon them, those that program them. And so in some ways, even though Queel is dead, he sort of lives on in IG-11. I thought that was dope. Really, I did. I thought that was a great ending for that character. So, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think we're getting any more IG. The Gamorrean Guard was something that Jon Favreau teased for Season 2, so we're going to get some Gamorrean Guards, which could imply Jabba's palace. Maybe going over to Tatooine, you know what I mean? Hanging out with your boy Luke. Could be. Could be. Do you think the Mando leader is Emilia Clarke or Sabine? No. No. I think it's a different lady that is a badass. Do you see the way she fought with the freaking hammer and stuff, man? I wouldn't want to mess with that lady. Looks like Gammo is on a diet. Keto, maybe? Maybe. Disney need to work on their own stories in the Star Wars universe. They seem to fail each time they push characters that were established by George. Rogue plus Mando were awesome. They should keep doing it that way. Yeah, I agree. And honestly, too, I think we will look back on the sequel trilogy a little bit more fondly later on. Like, I do think that when as some time passes, people will be like, oh, yeah, the sequel trilogy, it is what it is. It wasn't great, but there's some great stuff in it. And ultimately, you know what's so crazy about the sequel trilogy? Do you guys think, and I really want to know, let me know in the comments section, do you believe that Disney realizes how popular Kylo Ren was and why so many people are upset that Ben Solo died? Do you think they even understand that? Because he's way more interesting than Rey. Like, way more interesting than Rey. And Ryan, to his credit, one of the things he did right in TLJ was treat that character as more of a co-protagonist than a villain. That's my favorite parts of The Last Jedi. I still say I like that movie, even though there's a lot of stuff in that movie that I don't like, and ultimately I wish that movie never existed. I like that movie. The best parts in that movie are Rey and Ben and Luke. I actually, even though he's a grumpy Luke, I like the Luke stuff. So all that stuff should have just been the film to me. But do you think they understand that? I see a lot of people being like, nope. How can they not know that? Do they? How can they not know that? It just blows my mind. It blows my mind. And look, I'm with a lot of people. I like the ending. Particularly because I think the reason it's Rey and not Ben is because she is the mother. She is the way forward. The twin sons rising together at the end of the film. You know what I mean? She is that. And the way the role mothers play is undeniable. You know what I mean? Like, all these people out there like, oh, we're treating a female character like a walking womb. It's like, no. You're treating motherhood with disrespect. Being a mother is an incredibly hard and important job. It's also perennial. It's ancient. There's something about it, man. So I think it had to be Rey for that simple reason. But having said that, if it was reversed and Rey brought Ben back to life, I'd be okay with it. Because I think it would be really interesting to see what that character would have to do, not only coping with the loss of Rey, trying to rebuild his reputation. What does he even do in the galaxy now? He's hated. I think that would have been really interesting. But alas, it is not what happened. I'm just going to do like one or two more, guys, and then I'm going to get out of here because I got a lot of videos to work on today. And so I'm very grateful to have had this chat with you guys. And yeah, I'll just do a couple more. So drop in questions, and I'll just try to find a couple that I think are pretty interesting. And then we'll call it. Do you think Baby Yoda is trained as a Mandalorian even if he gets the Darksaber? That's a really interesting question. Jason Johnson asks, do you think that Baby Yoda today is trained as a Mandalorian and even gets the Darksaber to lead Mandalore? Wow, wouldn't that be interesting? Wouldn't that be interesting? I don't think they will. I don't think they will. But I do think there will be some kind of a resolution between the Mandalorian people and the Jedi. I do. Because they have a history. Tar Vizsla, when Tar Vizsla was a part of the Jedi Order, Mandalore was peaceful towards the Jedi. And it was like this sort of turn. And then after he died and the Jedi took the Darksaber back, the Mandalorians broke in and stole that shit. And they were like, no, this is ours. So no, I don't think Baby Yoda is going to like wield the Darksaber and become a Mandalorian. But I do think there will be a resolution there that has something to do with Mandalorian and Jedi moving forward. Hey, smashy the like button. If you guys could smashy the like button, as executive producer Ryan H. says, that would help us out. Let's see here. I know this was about Ben Solo turning into Kylo Ren and becoming Ben Solo again, but what the whole trilogy was about, and I love it, I love Kylo Ren, forget Ben Solo. I like Kylo Ren a lot as well. But I think that his arc kind of ebbing and flowing and ultimately becoming Ben Solo again is actually really interesting. You know, him being drawn to the light. And what was that? Because now it really feels like Palpatine was the one that was corrupting him since birth. You know what I mean? Like Palpatine was corrupting these people from birth, you know? And Ben was so powerful. And by the way, I believe that that Kylo Ren was going to be the vessel that Sidious was going to go into, right? Because I think the plan was he wanted Kylo to kill Rey, destroying what he loves, driving him fully to the dark side, kind of making him a Sith, right? That's the whole idea. He wanted him to be a Sith, and he was probably going to bring Kylo back to Exegol and be like, okay, strike me down. And then Kylo strikes him down, and then boom, the Emperor's got a brand new band. You know what I mean? Like, he's now in Kylo Ren, along with all the Sith, which would have been dope. And the reason I think this is because he clearly wanted Kylo to kill Rey. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, no, the whole plan was to have Rey the whole time. No, it wasn't. Because after Leia stops Ben from killing Rey, and then Kylo Ren is killed, but not really, but killed, we have that scene between the Emperor and General Pride where the Emperor says, the Princess of Alderaan has thwarted my plans. Meaning, Rey, who I wanted dead, is now on the way here. But it's no matter. We'll figure it out. And that's when he plays jazz with it, and he's trying to get her to be the vessel. Turn her to the dark side. You know what I'm saying? So he clearly wanted to get in the body of Kylo. And I think because Kylo is more manipulatable, maybe, but also very strong. Very strong. Let's see here. Well, okay, so Robert, that's an interesting point. You say that no, he wanted to kill Kylo. Well, that would have been the ultimate revenge, would be to sort of embody a body of the Skywalkers. You know what I mean? Like, that's some sweet, sweet revenge then. Let's see here. Make a Kenobi video. Yeah, maybe I will. Do you think they will incorporate Rebels into Mandalorian? When they arrived on Tatooine, Zeb was the voice on the intercom. Get out of here, Jason Fraga. Was it really? Was that really old Zeb? I definitely think, and this will be the last question, guys. Thank you so much for hanging. This is the last question. But look forward to some good videos tomorrow. I definitely think we're going to get the Rebels characters in The Mandalorian. At least some of them. For sure. Could this be a little Jason Sandula? That'd be pretty cool. Jason would be pretty young. Be interesting to have the Mandalorian meet up with Hera. And Hera's kind of got her own Force-sensitive child. She obviously knew a lot of what Kanan was all about and all that. That would be really interesting. Of course, the option with Sabine and Ahsoka coming back for sure. Ezra Bridger for sure. But yeah, I definitely think that we will see Rebels characters in the show. And Filoni has kind of hinted at that as a option. You know what I mean? In some of his tweets and in some of the options that he had. That's certainly a thing. But we're going to leave it there. Thank you guys for hanging out this Saturday afternoon, just talking about Mandalorian, talking about Star Wars. I love doing this with you guys. Thank you so much. And look for some really cool videos coming out tomorrow regarding the twin theory and regarding sort of my thoughts on the trilogy as a whole. A lot of cool stuff to be talking about. And a lot of Marvel stuff to get to, too, baby. We got a lot of Marvel stuff to be picking up on as well. So look forward to all of that and more. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day. And I'll see you in the next video.